So AI promises to be this incredible learning shortcut, right? A magic key that can unlock any topic instantly. But you gotta wonder, in our rush to get all the answers, are we kind of forgetting how to actually learn? Let's get into it.
You know that feeling? We've all been there. You dive into a new subject, you've got all the tabs open, you're watching the videos, but your brain just feels stuck. It's like you're staring at this giant wall of information, and you have absolutely no idea how to even start climbing it.
Well, there's actually a name for this. It's called hitting the learning wall. And it turns out this isn't a you problem. It's a human brain problem. It's a fundamental challenge of how we're all wired. See, the thing that makes a subject feel hard isn't usually how big it is, but how complex it is. You've got dozens of new concepts, and they're all interacting with each other in this big, tangled web. And when you can't see how all those pieces connect, that's when the overwhelm really kicks in. The world of learning science has a pretty technical term for this, multiple element interactivity. But really, you can just think of it as the official name for that feeling you get when your mental hard drive just crashes because it's trying to process way too many things at once. And there's a real biological reason for this. Our working memory, that's the part of your brain that juggles all the new information, can really only handle about 3 or 4 new interacting ideas at the same time. That's it. That's our limit. Okay, now compare that tiny number to a seriously complex topic. It might have over 50 new concepts, maybe even hundreds of different connections between them. So our brains are built to handle like 4 things, but the topic is throwing 50 plus at us. That huge gap, that is the learning wall in action. It's a biological bottleneck we just can't avoid. So if our own brains are the problem, maybe technology is the solution? And this is where AI tools make their grand entrance, basically promising to be the sledgehammer that can smash right through that learning wall for us. And let's be totally clear, AI is fantastic at solving what you could call the small problems of learning. It can find sources, summarize articles, and even create visuals in seconds. I mean, these are tasks that used to take us hours, and now they're done in a snap. It's a massive time saver. And these new tools are getting so advanced, they can take all your research and just, poof, generate a perfectly organized mind map or even a personalized study plan. It really seems like the perfect fix for our overloaded brains. But is it really? And this brings us to a really important twist. What if we've been so focused on getting the perfectly organized answer that we've totally missed the actual point of learning in the first place? Because, see, the real goal of learning isn't to have a perfect set of notes or a flawless mind map somebody else made. The real learning, the kind that actually sticks, it happens in that messy, sometimes frustrating, and totally effortful process of building that structure for yourself. The struggle is the learning. That's the moment when the connections are actually being forged inside your brain. A quote from our source material really just hits the nail on the head. It says, if an AI hands you a finished mind map, it does you no good because you skipped all the thinking that creates understanding in the first place. So here's the bottom line. When we outsource that core, messy process to AI, we stumble into this hidden danger, the illusion of understanding. We feel like we're learning, but we're really not. And this is the critical difference we have to get. True mastery comes from that effortful process, your personal struggle to create your own structure. The illusion of learning, that comes from just passively receiving a structure that something else or someone else made for you. And you know what? It can be even worse than that. Trying to force your brain to understand a structure that an AI came up with can be super confusing. It's not organized the way you think. So instead of fixing the overwhelm, it can actually just add another layer of frustration. And that leads to this pretty stark warning. There is a real risk that these tools, if we use them the wrong way, can actually make learning harder, all while tricking you into thinking you're making progress. It's a dangerous combo. Okay, so what do? We've got these incredibly powerful tools, but they come with this hidden trap. Well, the answer isn't to just ditch AI. It's about learning how to use it the right way. So here's the new game plan. Think of it in 3 steps. First, use AI for all those small problems. Let it do the heavy lifting, the research, the summarizing, the filtering. But step 2, and this is crucial, you have to save the core problem for yourself. That hard, messy work of organizing ideas and finding the connections, that's your job. Which brings us to step 3. You build the final structure, the mind maps, the outlines, whatever works for you.
Just think of AI as your brilliant research assistant, not as a replacement for your own mind.
Ultimately, what this all comes down to is rediscovering a timeless truth about how we learn. Real learning isn't like a scavenger hunt where you go out and find a pre-made answer. It's more like a construction project where you have to build the answer, piece by piece, yourself.
And that leaves us with a pretty big question to think about. In a world where every answer is just a click away, the real challenge isn't going to be finding information. It's going to be remembering the forgotten art of how to truly understand it.